towards a pilot's license. This will help get the student on their way to obtaining their commercial pilot license. If this sounds like something you would be interested in, or if you know someone that would be, please contact Ocala Aviation Services, 861-7484.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala!
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. There's a couple of Chinese restaurants that I enjoy going to, and there's one here in Ocala that I just had a little friendship going with one of the ladies there. I'm not meaning romantic friendship, but I was chatting with her every time we would go in there, and she did not speak very much English, but she could communicate that she was here from China. She wasn't born and raised in America. She actually came from China, and so I was asking her about where she grew up. So she pulled out her smartphone.
Of course.
She showed me on Google Maps where her town was. She showed me some photographs of her town.
Yes.
I saw a KFC in the picture.
Exactly.
Clearly a Western thing over in this little town in China. And the little town in China didn't look any different than the little town in America, really.
Yeah.
It looked very normal. Or not normal is a bad word, but, very much like our own little towns. And I thought, wow, isn't the world a small place? You have these notions of the differences. But there are differences. They may not be in the buildings or in the restaurants we go to, but maybe in the medicine or the cultural things. The music is really usually very different, right? Although that gets a little blurred, too, because of the way communication is so exchangeable nowadays, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But there are sometimes opportunities for us to learn from one another, whether it's from days gone by or from different parts of the world. I think that is exactly what we're going to talk about right now. The book that I'm holding is called East Meets West. John Adago is on the phone. He has been with us before, and he is exploring this whole notion that there are people who have walked this earth, who have introduced us to people from the other parts of the world that we could benefit from knowing a little bit about. What comes to mind right away is the whole Beatles thing with George Harrison getting in touch, introducing us as Western music lovers to some of the sitar and Eastern Indian, at least in Indian music, right?
Yes.
John Adago, good morning, John.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
And where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm in New York City.
In New York, okay. And thank you for being on again. I don't remember how often you've been with us, but at least once before, right?
Once, yes. Once about a year ago.
So, do you know what I've thought also often about this topic is that before we committed genocide upon the Native Americans that lived here, every time you hear a story about how they lived their lives, it almost sounds like Eastern culture. So we actually had the Eastern culture on these grounds and then kind of obliterated it, didn't we?
Well, it's although they were called Indians.
Right. Besides that fact, yeah.
The philosophical tradition in India is really something that up until recently, the last 50 or 60 years, we knew very little about in the West. And actually, that's the subject of the East Meets West. I write about 13 teachers who devoted their lives, one, to going to the East, to India and other parts of the East, and seeking out knowledge that it occurred to them, had been nearly forgotten in the West. And they brought that knowledge back and taught it. You mentioned George Harrison and the Beatles, and of course they went to India with the Maharishi. And that event had a great deal to do with reintroducing meditation to the West.
Yeah, and meditation is an important part of the book.
Yeah, well, meditation was a cornerstone practice of the spiritual life in the East.
So is this something that has always been an interest to you, or did something kind of get this whole thing started for you?
Well, right out of college, I encountered some of the philosophy writings of men like Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, and was drawn to Eastern philosophy and meditation. And it struck a very powerful chord in me. I was raised a Catholic, and I'm still a practicing Catholic. But the Eastern philosophy I found to be quite profound, and the practice of meditation I found to be really a transformative influence in my life.
Do you think that World War II had a part in this, in making meditation more accepted?
I think it was World War II, and particularly the dawning of the nuclear age, was a big part of the impetus in which the teachers in the East decided it was really essential that the knowledge of the East merged with the energy of the West. And teachers there began to reach out. And one of them, who was the teacher of Maharishi, took the traditional practice of meditation, which had been really a long, arduous practice that people practiced in monasteries or in hermitages and spent many hours every day meditating, and changed that, put it in a form that was more suitable, for Westerners and for even householders in the East. And that was what Maharishi introduced, and other people behind him. They called it transcendental meditation. But it was this practice that allowed a man or a woman fully engaged in a full life of family and community, and as a citizen and in his industry, a profession, to introduce meditation as a part of his day.
We have become very good at letting the world know how we live, and obviously we in the West have affected to some extent the East, the people in the East, and a great illustration of that is the very story I was telling you in the beginning. The woman who worked at the Chinese restaurant showed me her picture of her hometown, and there was a KFC.
Yeah,
right there in her hometown. So I mean, that's a great example. But we've been less embracing of their culture coming here. Medicine is a great example. I mean, we have a young lady who's a doctor in our community who does acupuncture, and people are swearing by the results of it all. And that was not even considered acceptable for not too long ago. That's
true. And yes, this Eastern knowledge came over rather recently. It really was in the second half of the last century, we're talking about 1960. And during that time, there's been quite a transformation. I mean, as I speak about in East Meets West, now words like meditation and mantra and yoga and karma are household words. But in 1955, that was not the case. If meditation was virtually unknown in the West. If it was thought of at all, it was thought of as some obscure practice, contemplating one's navel.
Right. And nutty. Everybody looked at it upon as nutty.
Yeah.
Yes. And then there was this wave, really an influence, and we exported our technology and our sophistication and our economics to the East. But really their area of specialty was in the spiritual sciences. The scientists in the West wanted freedom from want and poverty, but the spiritual scientists in the East wanted freedom from desire and suffering. They wanted man to lift the veil of illusion that kept him from reaching his highest potential. And they learned and taught principles that would lead a man and a woman toward a fulfilled life of happiness and well-being.
And you teach us about the teachers in your book, East Meets West. So I want to make sure we get all that in. We have to take a little break, and we'll be right back. John Adago is on the phone. He's up in New York City. He has written the book called East Meets West, the stories of the remarkable men and women in the East and the West who built a bridge across a cultural divide and introduced meditation and Eastern philosophy to the West, and that's you and me. So we'll take a little break right now, and we'll be right back with John Adago after this.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, a warm day with sunshine and some building clouds. There can be an afternoon thunderstorm in spots. High 82 at the coast, 87 inland. And partly cloudy tonight, though 63 to 67. Mostly sunny and pleasantly warm tomorrow. High 83 at the coast, 89 inland. For Friday, partly sunny and warm. Watch out for a thunderstorm in the afternoon. The high 85 to 89. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Hi, this is JP from Penn Flooring here in Ocala. I would like to invite you to come in and visit our spacious showroom where we have solutions for every style and budget. From wall-to-wall carpet to hardwood floors and tiles, we have an unsurpassed selection of flooring. At Penn Flooring, we've provided quality customer service with a family touch for over 25 years. Visit our website at pennflooring.com or come by our showroom, 1201 Southwest 17th Street, just over the bridge. Penn Flooring, quality customer service with a family touch.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. Carol Ann answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carol Ann Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on WOCA The Source.
Hi, this is Brad. I want to take a moment to talk about a serious issue. In the next 5 years, the aviation industry is projected to have a shortage of commercial pilots. Now is the time to start training. Ocala Flying Club has started a scholarship for the youth of Marion County ages 17 to 24. The club will donate up to $4,000 towards a pilot's license. This will help get the student on their way to obtaining their commercial pilot license. If this sounds like something you would be interested in, or if you know someone that would be, please contact Ocala Aviation Services, 861-7484.
The 2015 Home Garden and Lifestyle Expo returns to the Klein Conference Center in the Ewers Century Center at the College of Central Florida this Saturday, April 11th from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. The expo offers professional advice on housing options, home financing, innovative products, creative remodeling ideas, do-it-yourself advice, plus great shopping deals related to home gardening, remodeling, and home decor. So be there this Saturday at the Home Garden and Lifestyle Expo.
12 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. One year after the Beatle George Harrison died, his friends and his wife and his son had held a concert in memory of George Harrison. And so I was watching like the making of that concert, which was as interesting as the concert was entertaining. And the musicians who were like Eric Clapton and Paul McCartney and whoever else was there, I can't remember, Tom Petty was there, Jeff Lynne, the Western musicians, in other words. Exactly. They were trying to learn to play along with the Eastern musicians that George Harrison came to know, Ravi Shankar's daughter, who, by the way, is gorgeous.
And she was fabulous on that sitar, too.
But it was interesting to hear them talk about how, how we have this, like music is broken up into 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, whatever. It's not done that same way in the Eastern music, and it's just another example of how we differ from them, and it doesn't take away from the beauty in any way. In some ways, I don't know if ours is. I think ours is beautiful too, our music, but I think we're so familiar with it that when we hear something else that's not like it, it sort of seems exotic or even more beautiful. I don't know. Same thing with language, I think.
Oh, yeah.
John Adago is our guest. His book is called East Meets West, and John was a student of the work, and he's going to explain why the word work in my notes is in parentheses, is in quotations. The work of Gurdjieff, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and Ouspensky since the 60s. He's been a member of the group led by William Nyland. 3 names I'm going to have, so the student has to be the teacher right now. John, who are those people?
Well, these people were profound philosophers, though they are not widely known. They all have a following, and followings in countries all over the world. But Gurdjieff and Ouspensky spent a good part of their life, decades, seeking knowledge, and they sought in the East because they became convinced that there was a living teaching in the East that people had lost track of in the West. And they went out in search of teachers and monasteries and brotherhoods, ashrams, and they found knowledge, and they brought it back, and then they began to teach and write, and groups formed around them. They began to follow their teachings, their examples, and this endeavor that became known as the work, in which a man or a woman, through observation and through devoting themselves to seeking a deeper understanding of their true nature, and a deeper understanding of what is life about and what is the purpose of a human being.
And you were fortunate to have one-on-one contact with a few of the people that you have written about in your book. It just didn't have to do with research via papers. You actually got to speak with people.
Well, yes. Willem Nyland was with Gurdjieff for 25 years, and I had the good fortune to be in his groups for about 6 years. And I also met several of the other teachers that I write about in the book and studied with them and worked with them and was profoundly influenced by them. And the others, like Gurdjieff and Uspensky, who passed on before I reached maturity, I became quite familiar with their writings and their ideas because I knew people that had lived with them very closely and intimately. So it was, as you said, it wasn't just a research in the library. What this book, East Meets West, encompasses is my memories of these principles as they were expounded by these teachers and how they affected a profound change in the people who sought to incorporate them into their lives.
And does that include you and your wife?
Yes, it does. It includes me and my wife.
So I have a question for you about being a student of this. Whenever we're students of anything for the first time, at first it's difficult to grasp, and then you start to grasp it. And when you start to grasp it, you feel like you're already an expert at it, and you talk to other people about it as if you are an expert, although you're not really. But then, a few years into it, suddenly something clicks, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have mastered it, and you know that you've mastered it. So how did that moment happen for you? When did that moment happen for you that you knew that you got it?
Oh, I'm not sure that it has.
Hasn't happened yet. Okay. Okay.
This is a way. It's a way of life. It's a journey toward the infinite. It's a journey toward eternity. And when one sets one's foot on the path, the eyes are opened and the ears are opened, and one learns every day. Yes, the understanding deepens, and it reached a point where I began to speak about it with other people and lead groups. And I guess you could say that was that moment where I felt there was something that had developed through years of study and work that I had something to share with others. But this is a book about master teachers, 13 of them, and I don't consider myself a master teacher. I'm not a philosopher, I'm a student of philosophy.
Well, anyone who reads your book will be more tolerant of people who appear to be different than they are, because they're not really different. The outside might be religion and race, but everybody has the same heart. Everybody has the same grasp on humanity, that they want to have this kindness, and you really are expressing that in your book.
Well, yes. What East Meets West attempts to make clear is that one of the things we discover in the study of philosophy and the study of the master teachers of mankind is that there's a unifying chord that sounded through all the great teachings. I believe if we were to walk into a room and find there Jesus and Moses and Krishna and Socrates and Hermes and Aristotle and Confucius, we would not find them engaged in an argument. What they taught was universal, because the nature of men and women does not change. And the nature of the laws that govern men and women and the creation does not change. And so the essential teaching of the master teachers of mankind, there is this unifying chord. Like the bee can gather honey from many different flowers, a serious student will discover truth in many different traditions.
Did you have to sacrifice any of your own beliefs in order to embrace new beliefs? Or do they reside within you simultaneously?
For myself, they reside within me simultaneously. In fact, I found the Eastern philosophy deepens my understanding of the Catholicism that I grew up with, and that the Catholicism, specifically the Gospels, deepens my understanding of Eastern philosophy.
That is interesting. And that kind of, you illustrated that when you gave us the mental image of all of the great prophets in one room.
Yes. So if you ask, did I have something to give up? Well, one of the first things you give up is your unnecessary suffering. And I think that's something that everybody's willing to give up. We all endure a lot of pain for which we don't get very much. And we learn how to begin to observe ourselves and get an understanding of the conflicts and the contradictions, and perhaps refine what it is we seek will make us happy.
Well, your children are very happy, are very lucky to have grown up in your household, because you really embrace good values, and you have an extremely open mind, and that really is sometimes hard for parents.
Yes.
What role do you think that the sensory things play, like the incense and the music? What role does that actually play? Is it just aesthetics, or is it really serving in some way?
Well, it sets an atmosphere, and perhaps helps.
Uh-oh. John, you there?
Oh, the light's still on.
John, I can't hear you. It just dropped off totally. I don't know if you can hear us or not. Gosh. We used to have phones that worked, remember?
I know.
John, you there?
To do.
He might be able to hear us, but I can't hear him. John?
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah, you slipped away for a while. I don't know if you could tell you slipped away, but I'm just...
I did. I could tell, and I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
we're okay now?
Phones.
Oh,
yeah.
we're good now.
Yeah, we're good now. We got about 3 minutes. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. Time is something we have to be philosophical about, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yes, it is. But you had asked about the setting in the atmosphere and the incense and the music and the rituals, and essentially all of these practices and things like that are for the purpose of helping us find a quiet spot within ourselves. And it's important that people do that once or twice a day, that they stop this continuous activity, external activity and inner conversations and inner worries and thoughts, come to a spot in themselves where they find some stillness. It's really their own true self that they come to rest in. And that is the profound experience that uplifts the man, the woman in his life.
What is the fourth way? What is that?
Well, the fourth way, in East Meets West, these teachers, there were three traditional paths of spirituality. One of the mind, or seeking knowledge, one of devotion, which is prayer and contemplation, and the physical exercises like hatha yoga. The fourth way is a way that encompasses principles from all of those methods. And unlike the monastic order, it carried on in life while participating in a full life. So you asked if I had to give up anything. Well, I have a family and a wife and children and grandchildren and a profession. The idea is that the spiritual practice enlivens and enriches a full spectrum of life. And so nothing is given up except the things that aren't particularly useful.
Well, you refer to yourself as a student and not a master, but from my perspective, you're a master.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not even close to where you are. So, you're a master to me. So, I guess we're all masters and students as we go through this life. John, always fun to talk to you. I remember chatting with you last time and enjoying it. And again, you've done that again for us. The book is called East Meets West. We've got about 45 seconds. How do we get the book? Do you have a website?
It's available on Amazon. It can be ordered through most bookstores. It's distributed in the United States and in Europe. And my website is thejourneyback.net, where you can get a little bit more information, some writings and stories that are listed up there.
All right.
But the easiest way to get the book is through Amazon.
Okay, thejourneyback.net. The book again is called East Meets West. I have a copy. Call me if you want the copy that was sent to me. John, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill.
Very caring, very loving.
Judy Scott, mother of Walter Scott, shot and killed by white police officer Michael Slager in North Charleston, South Carolina. A video shows Scott stopped for a broken brake light, apparently being shot in the back.
We've got 343 police officers in our department. This is a bad decision by one of those.
Mayor Keith Summey, a U.S. soldier killed, at least 2 wounded by an Afghan soldier. It happened after a meeting involving a U.S. embassy official and local leaders in eastern Afghanistan. Stan Freberg has died, known for his satiric commercials and comedy recordings like St. George and the Dragonette.
On September the 5th, the Dragon was tried and convicted. His fire was put out and his maiden-devouring license revoked.
Freeberg won a Grammy and nearly 24 Clio Awards for his ads. He was 88. Fox News, we report, you decide.
And now, another golf confessional, brought to you by Golfsmith. A man said he recently informed his wife he's going to start waxing his chest, only because the waxing place is right near Golfsmith, and they're about to have trade-in days. For a limited time only, when you trade in your old clubs, you get a 50% bonus towards new ones. He's got a lot of clubs to trade in, so he's going to wax his chest, eyebrows, back, and, well, just check out trade-in days at Golfsmith. Anything for golf.
This is an announcement for all people who want to take a risk-free challenge to whiten their teeth in 5 minutes using clinical